Welcome back to the Foreign Report, your weekly foreign policy show that gives you the gory details of geopolitics with hopefully some laughs along the way. I'm Sina Ghaznavi, your foreign policy curious host, and Noreen Malik is with us for just a few more episodes in the virtual studio. And with us, as we cycle some different friends into the show, comedian, professor, and co-host of Fraudsters, the hit show Fraudsters, Dr. Justin Williams.
Yeah.
Justin, hello.
Yeah. This is great.
Isn't it something we would talk about fraud? We have fun. And then now we're going to talk about, I guess, fraud again.
Yeah.
It's geopolitics.
Everything's a fraud now.
There's so much fraud. Do you get a lot of texts now and emails from people like, I'm sure you got a lot of fraud to cover. There's a lot of fraud out there. Like there was ever not enough fraud for us to cover?
No, I had a student email me today asking, she said, we're trying to bring Dr. Umar Johnson to town. Will you, the African American Studies program, sponsor him? And I sent her an email saying no for these very specific reasons and sort of cautioned her against being too public with any associations during a time like this.
Oh my God. Did you send them the link to the episode?
No, I was just like, let me know. Because you know how conspiracy theory, like, I'm like, if you want sources, I'm happy to provide them. This is just what I'm saying.
Yeah.
If you try to give people too much, they think something's up.
For the listeners and the viewers that don't know, you are a professor of African American history. Is that correct?
Yes.
And so you have a PhD in that specific subject?
Yes, I have a real PhD in history from a real school. I'm actually a doctor, even though I don't go by doctor. Now, Dr. Umar he's neither doctor or Umar. His real name is Jermaine, I think.
Can I just say, it warms my heart that we are on a foreign policy show, yet we managed to get Dr. Umar Johnson in. So that's good.
He did make false comments about South Africa. Yeah, he said South Africa was going to be speaking Chinese.
Well, we're going to get to that later in the show. We're going to talk about South Africa. I can't wait to talk about it. We're going to talk about Ukraine. We're going to do a quick Ukraine update. We're going to talk about the German elections. And yes, we're going to do a little section on South Africa, all the disinformation that's been coming out about South Africa. And we're also going to talk about Doge. And while it is a domestic program led by Elon Musk, it does have ripple effects and consequences and impact around the world. And there was a video. I got to send you this video, Noreen. I'll get to it later in the show. Don't let me forget the Elon video, okay? Don't let me forget before the end of the show. Oh, my God. All right. Well, let's get into the news first. So good to have you here, Justin. By the way, Justin is wearing a very multicolored shirt that I think is beautiful.
Yeah.
But Justin's always got cool shirts on.
Always.
This is his brand.
I'm like Sinbad in the 90s. Like, you have to have real...
Bring it back.
If it has to be like a silk with a big polka dots, something, a lot of shirt on my shirt.
You ever see how a pimp walks? All right, Noreen, let's get into Ukraine. Give us the update. What's going on there? Hilarious negotiations are happening with Zelensky. Oh, boy.
Yeah, all right. Well, Ukraine and the U.S. just shook on a big economic deal, mainly giving the U.S. access to Ukraine's rare earth minerals. Kiev is hoping this deal keeps U.S. military aid flowing, which they really need. The signing could happen as soon as Friday, and Zelensky might even fly to D.C. to seal the deal with Trump, who has been saying it could be worth, quote, $1 trillion. The deal gives the U.S. and Ukraine joint ownership of a fund, with Ukraine chipping in 50% of future profits from its minerals, oil, and gas, which is way better than an earlier U.S. proposal demanding $500 billion just outright. Okay, now what's missing? Security guarantees. That's going to be something Trump and Zelensky discuss when they meet. Things were tense before this, as we remember, with Zelensky rejecting an earlier U.S. offer and Trump calling Zelensky a, quote, dictator without elections. But after some back and forth, both sides hammered out something they can maybe live with.
I think the last thing I saw on this was that Zelensky was balking at the idea that this was any sort of like loan or repayment of any sort of money, that it was actually what you're saying, that it was a deal. They're getting 50% of the profits. It's still sold out in the open market and sold to the United States, and they'll be getting the profits to this funding. So I don't know. Who knows how this happens? Trump will just make these crazy accusations. Every time I go into a deal with someone, I usually call them a dictator days before we try to sign a contract.
That's how you win.
Yeah. That's how you get them.
I think it's great that Ukraine had to sign basically an African-style international monetary fund deal just to maintain its sovereignty. Like 50% on something that the United States gets at like 50% of something it doesn't own. It's like this is great. It's like capitalism is now screwing over the Eastern Europeans.
Yeah, we got to control it. The Chinese are all doing it in Africa. So, might as well. I feel like the Africans are down to, do these deals with the Chinese more than they are with America, right?
No, I mean, they can work with the Russians. But they kind of have some choice. They have like, sort of more choices. China gives more favorable terms. That's the thing. It's like, this is a very U.S. deal. China would say, if you give us the minerals, we'll give you like an unlimited supply of weapons. Or you give us the minerals and we'll just build infrastructure so you're not in debt. And it might not be like the best deal, but it's still a better deal than would you say the U.S. getting half for something that it has no claim to?
Yeah.
It's a terrible deal for Ukraine.
Yeah, Lace, I remember the Chinese were at least going into Africa. They were like building soccer stadiums and roads and stuff like that. I mean, it seems like the other thing that's happening here is that Trump is trying to negotiate with Russia without Ukraine to end the war, and which will ultimately probably result in Ukraine losing a lot of territory. Yeah. But I think it's also a signal to the Chinese that they're trying to isolate China by cozying up to Russia to try to get Russia to distance itself from China. So that's something that we should be on the lookout for. I don't know. That seems to be some sort of like 3D chess that's happening that I don't necessarily think he's going to be able to follow through on.
Oh, yeah. If you know one thing about Vladimir Putin that we've learned since the George W. Bush administration is that he can totally be appeased. Yeah, this time, if we just do this, we'll be able to isolate him from China. It's like, no, you're not. You're not going to be able to isolate him.
He's just going to do both, right? Is that what you're saying?
He's going to do both or do one until it's like no longer feasible and then just turn and do the other. Yeah, it's about the survival of his regime. It's not about any of the alignment stuff that they're attempting to. We could purchase Trump's debt, though.
Trump's personal debt?
Yeah, so it gives him like a tremendous amount of leverage. Like that may be the thing, but that only lasts as long as Trump is in there. Like he can own Trump as an asset if he can say, look, I'll purchase a piece of it. It's kind of like Elon did, right? Okay, I could put $300 million on the table right now and you're $1 billion in legal debt.
And I think the other thing, too, that China's able to do is just sit and wait. They can just wait this out. That's the thing. I mean, there is some sort of advantage of having a complete control over your country's finances, is that you can just kind of sit and hang out for a few years until the crazy person is gone. And then, who knows who comes in next. I mean, I'm afraid of who comes in after Trump, because they'll be more organized.
Or maybe Trump never leaves.
Wow, Noreen, come on. You think that really?
Think about that.
I don't think
no, but I think he's going to try.
He'll leave when his heart. His heart will leave him because he eats Big Macs and he's 100 years old.
I'll inshallah to that.
You never know.
It's going to be a violent explosion.
Who knows?
But he might live long like Palpatine off hate, like, how hateful people. You ever have like a grandma that was real mean and she lived to be like 900 years old?
And like former cigarette smokers that just smoked for 30 years. Somehow they lived into their late 90s. You're like, what? All right, let's go on. We also had some elections happening in Europe, Noreen.
Oh, yeah. So Germany just had a major election shakeup. Conservative leader Friedrich Merz won, but not by much, and the far-right Alternative for Germany, also known as AfD, made history, doubling its support to around 20.5%, which is the strongest far-right showing since World War II. Which is probably not a big deal.
What was that war about?
Who can remember? The details just seem so
I don't know. Just
fuzzy
you're a history
to me.
Professor. I don't. That's older than me. What?
It was a Kraftwerk concert gone bad. That's what I read.
You're a band less.
Meanwhile, Chancellor Olaf Scholz's Social Democrats hit a record low in third place. This election came early after Scholz's unpopular coalition fell apart, with voters frustrated over economic stagnation and immigration concerns. Merz now has to figure out a coalition, but that won't be easy. And AfD is celebrating big, but no mainstream party, including Merz's, wants to work with them. Scholz is openly rejecting AfD's rise, while the Greens and other smaller parties try to stay relevant. And with Germany being a key NATO player and Ukraine's second biggest weapons supplier, the outcome here will impact not just Germany, but Europe's future and its relationship with the US. So now all eyes are on whether Merz can actually form a stable government.
Yeah, we'll see how this goes down. But also the leftists gained a bunch of seats as well.
Yeah, the socialist left.
So you're finding the same kind of polarization happening in Germany that we have here. You know, I don't know. Here's the question. I think that what this shows me, and I know that it's like tough to form a government and all that stuff, but this two-party system, I mean, not to beat a dead horse or a dead country, but it is not working. We need to be able to have a place for the Nazis to go, or the white nationalists. I don't want to say Nazis. That's not fair to the Nazis. I want the white nationalists to have their own party so that they can go into a corner. I was just watching like Representative Tom Massey. He's like a super conservative guy. And he's like, this budget the Republicans just passed is adding like hundreds of billions of dollars to the budget every year. I'm not going to vote for it. So like that guy's probably going to flip and end up voting with his party at some point. They're going to like find, some dead body he has buried in the middle of the country or find some sort of, leverage to have on him and to get him to flip. But if we had these separate parties, you had centrist Democrats and Republicans, and then you had your leftists, and then you had your white nationalists. I feel like it would be an easier time to govern. I mean, sure, you'd have to have a coalition, but wouldn't we have a better time? I feel like we wouldn't be so polarized, that everyone wouldn't have to be so pushed into a binary. What do you guys think?
But the white nationalists have their own party, at least.
The whole Republican Party. Is that what you're saying?
Right.
The whole Republican. Okay, interesting. Thank you, Noreen. Look at me, trying to be a friendly American. Okay, guys? Just a friendly guy trying to unite the country. I don't think all Republicans are white nationalists. I think all white nationalists are Republicans. That's different.
Yeah, this a rectangle. Is this, what is it? Rectangle, squares, not a rectangle? Something like that.
You better believe it. Justin, what do you think?
I think Hulk Hogan should have his own party. I'm in it for Hulk at this point. He gets booed everywhere now. It's very funny.
He is in his mega heel era. He doesn't even have the people that like him as a heel anymore.
No, and he's always selling beer. Like, it's like, because, becoming a Trump supporter out of nowhere, because Hogan endorsed Obama. People forget about that. I mean, becoming a Trump supporter is like always like you need money. Especially when you become one in the last like 2 years, you know what I mean? Like this whole time you sat it out, but it's like the easiest route to getting money. So he's trying to sell this all American beer, and he threw one in the audience in Iowa, and he hit an old woman in the head, and that's a lawsuit on there.
No way!
Yeah.
Oh my God, that did not happen.
Yeah, it did.
You're supposed to open the beer. Oh
yeah.
My God, what was he thinking?
That's crazy.
Hulk Hogan. Also, we have American beer. I know Budweiser's owned by a European company, but still, it's America's beer. I mean, Miller Lite, what are we talking about here?
It's not good either. I've heard the reviews. I had some friends that drank it out of curiosity, and they're like, Hogan's beer sucks. It's terrible.
Also, the youth aren't drinking.
Yeah, they're weird. They don't do anything. I don't know what they do. They don't drink. They have Facebook profiles, but they've never posted. They've never seen a movie. They've never listened to a whole album. It's insane. Like, I work with 19-year-olds, and it's just like, assume they're aliens. Like, you're just like they've never seen Barack Obama do anything. Like, they don't know if Donald Trump, they're like, what's weird about Donald Trump? And you're like,
yeah, what's the big deal?
They have no context for like literally anything in reality. I have no idea where they were the first 20 years of their life.
What do you talk about with them?
Yeah, what do you talk about with them? Their homework?
No, you start off basic. I just pretend I'm teaching people that just arrived in America yesterday.
Do you speak a little louder? Hello, welcome. This is African American History 101.
Well, as I say, I go, well, if you haven't heard of slavery, this is going to be a little tough because this is the first time you're hearing about this.
I thought this was Afrikaners American history. I didn't know.
But, I wish the German people luck.
Yeah. I mean, at the very least, the AFD didn't win. So, I mean, at the very, it's like, their equivalent of like, I guess, a Mike Pence one. I mean, it's like, I'm not sure really exactly how the Germans will fly in this sense. I know a lot of them still don't like Elon Musk. That's for sure. There's a big old poster outside with tape over Elon Musk's face. It said, "Shut the F up."
I look at him and I go, how can anybody think anything other than this guy is the biggest loser in the world?
Even if you like what he's doing, I feel like you got to be like, he is a loser, though. He is such a dork.
It's like he can only exist in a tech space. If you send me an email saying I have to justify my job or else I take it as a resignation, I will whoop your ass. Like, I will go to your office and physically horsewhip you. And he's never gotten that horsewhipping.
No.
And so he thinks he's like a dude, but it's only in the tech world where he could bully people like this. Like, okay, just send that letter down at the Amazon warehouse.
I really just want to have him get put up wedgie style in a locker.
He's like visibly dumb too. It's like,
and he cheated on video games. You saw that, right?
Yeah, I don't even look at him because he's just such a wannabe poser loser dude that just happened to have made some good investments. He's the embodiment of the emptiness of current capitalism. It's like he's like the guy whose stock for his car company is like insanely overvalued. Therefore, this guy that is as smart as an 8th grader, we have to listen to him try to sound like he's smart, and then he has a chainsaw at conferences. Like, you can't be that smart because you don't do anything. You shouldn't have time. You should be like, oh, I have a very important meeting. I can't have a chainsaw at CPAC. Yeah. I'm busy being
he posts genius. Like 100 times a day. Anyways, I don't want to get too much into Elon Musk. We're going to get to that in the third block here. But you didn't answer my question though, Justin. I'm going to stick you on this. Okay. Multi-party system in America. What do you think? Do you think it would work? Do you think our country would be better off for it or not?
No, I don't think the left should have its own party because I've seen the Green Party in this country. It is the worst, most ineffective, terrible organization in the world that couldn't even win a local school board seat. So I'm like, no, maybe the Democratic Party. This is where Democratic Party is useful. I used to work for the Green Party when I first started in politics in 2004. And I worked for the Green Party candidate. We fought very hard to make sure that we could get on the stage with the Republican, Democrat, and the Libertarian for a C-SPAN televised debate for a Missouri Senate seat. Not for state Senate, but like for one of the senators for the state of Missouri. And we got on the stage, and I was working for Digger Romano. He was a white man with dreadlocks. And
wow. That's good. I've seen him on a Green Party poster for sure.
Yeah. And he had a lot of great ideas. I agree with most of what he was saying. But he showed up to the debate and he did not have a suit.
It worked for John Fetterman.
He wasn't as bad as the Libertarian candidate. The Libertarian candidate, she said, her name was Tamara Malay, and she wore a purple pantsuit. She said, any vote for gun control is a vote to strangle a woman with her own pantyhose and sexually assault her.
No.
Oh my God.
God damn.
And the moderator was like, this question was about taxes.
Man, I don't know. I still think it would be better. I mean, it just feels like everything is a binary now within it's like red or blue. You're either a white nationalist or a leftist. The thing that, it goes back to even what people were saying about Kamala when they were like, Kamala is this leftist radical. And I was like, I don't think you've ever talked to a leftist before because there are zero leftists in the history of mankind that would describe Kamala Harris as one radical or two a leftist.
We need like a radical leftist that say, but like that. Okay, this is what should become a party is like the Antifa.
Yeah, but they're so decentralized.
I know that's the problem.
that's the thing with all these leftist movements. They're all about, mic check. It's like, come on, we got to fall in line at some point, guys.
I tried to be a communist for a while after the
How'd
Green
that
Party.
work out for you? Yeah.
So
now
here's
you're
the
a
thing
business owner and a professor.
Yeah.
Oh, Justin.
No, because I got mad at the communists too. I left because all they do is fight about shit that doesn't matter. Like they have less than 1% of the vote, but then they divide it between Trotskyite and Stalinist at the meetings.
You guys go over here. You guys go over here. Okay. And we're going to debate.
And the Maoists are in another corner. You guys should probably just be communists for at least one election.
All right. That's the news. When we come back, Dr. Justin Williams will be with us. I'm going to call you Doctor on just this episode only to put some respect on that name. And Noreen Malik will be back with us as well. We're going to talk about South Africa. This is the Foreign Report. We'll be right back after this. Welcome back to the Foreign Report. I'm Sina Ghaznavi, your foreign policy curious host. Noreen Malik is our producer, and Dr. Justin Williams, co-host of Fraudsters, professor, and a professor of African American history, is with us in the virtual studio. Oh my God, Justin, thank you for coming back. Okay, Justin, since you are a professor of African American history, and this topic has come up a lot in the news about South Africa, I wanted to talk to you about it since you're an expert. I have to admit, reading up on, the political situation across all of Africa has been really difficult because it's like relearning an entire whole set of parameters and groups that are beefing with each other and all these other things. But for just today, I wanted to focus on South Africa because on February 7th, Trump issued an executive order to freeze all U.S. aid to South Africa and grant to it refugee status to just the white Afrikaners who want to leave the country. Yeah. So what is happening here and what is going on? How did we get here?
Okay, so long story short, this is what happens when white supremacist talking points from like yahoo.com news articles make their way all the way up to the website, right?
That's a lot of yahoo.com shade. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, so, okay, long story short, from 1948 to roughly 1990, 1994-ish, South Africa had a system of government called apartheid, which moved the majority of the population out of urban centers and consolidated them onto Bantustans, which is kind of like reservations. So it's a hybrid system of government that's kind of like...
Sorry, 1 second. Sorry, just to interrupt. So you're saying when you move a group of people into a small space and surround them, let's say, with a wall and control the resources that go in and out of that place, that's apartheid?
Oh, yes, especially if that group is not allowed to engage in equal citizenship in the state that has domination over them. So apartheid is it's a mixture of Jim Crow and Native American removal. The illusion that you're making is a reason why Nelson Mandela was always firmly a friend to the PLO and Yasser Arafat and vice versa. And Israel was actually on the side of the West, which was actually pro-apartheid. But it gets a little complicated, though, because when people try to use that argument, it's also worth noting that South African Jews a lot of times were anti-apartheid. They could be pro-Israel and anti-apartheid in the same context, right?
Again, we need the multiple parties. We need the multiple groups. Everything is gray. Yeah. It's not a binary. Yeah. All right, keep going.
Okay, so apartheid ends, right? But the white minority owns most of the land. It's probably at that point, it's probably over 80% at 1994. I think now it's maybe around 75% of the land. But in the context of a free society that's economically unequal and one that doesn't have like an authoritarian police state anymore, South Africa becomes economically the most unequal country on earth. Basically, it's the first world and like the third world sort of sharing like the same space. So you have like escalating crime after the country becomes a democracy, right? And as part of that crime, a lot of times you have attacks on white landowners by like workers or people in the countryside. Now, keep in mind, the murder rate across the board in South Africa went up. But what white supremacists have sought to do is to undermine South Africa because Nelson Mandela becoming president ushered in an era of allowing the white minority to keep its privileges and did not seize their property. And so it undermines white supremacy to acknowledge that Nelson Mandela got out of prison, or he's been like in prison for 27 years, forgives the white minority, allows them to keep their economic privileges, and allows them to keep equal citizenship in the context of democracy. It's the worst argument for white supremacy, because white supremacists want to say they would do it to us if they were the majority. And the fact that that didn't happen in South Africa actually bothers them. So what they've done is they've latched on to any time a black person murders like a white farm owner, they've tried to pitch it as that it's genocide.
I see.
Yeah, they're basically taking like elevated crime statistics. What they're not talking about is that the murder rate across the board is like up in sort of like free South Africa. So what they want to do is they want to turn it into a genocide so they can justify what they want to do in like Western societies. What makes this effort so funny is that although after the end of apartheid, like if you're a poor white South African, you're kind of SOL because affirmative action programs favored getting black people into the workforce and diversifying it. So that put poor white South Africans at a disadvantage. But any white South African landowner is not coming to the United States because they would be moving down in lifestyle. Like their ancestors stole some of the most beautiful land in the world. And if they've inherited that, it's like
they come here, they'd be like, eggs are how much?
Yeah. If they move an Afrikaner from a vineyard in Stellenbosch to a trailer park outside of Cincinnati, it's like the worst trade in the world.
So they could explain this, I guess it's called the Expropriation Act that they signed that allowed them to take land in the public interest. Tell me about what's the deal with that? So there is a program to repatriate land that was taken by the white South Africaners, or did I not? I don't have that right.
It's not a significant percentage usually. What it is always a deal. It's always a deal that says they can take lands that are maybe being unused, which is like a small sort of percentage, right? And it gives sort of political cover for the ANC to say that it's making land reform efforts because there is a leftist party that called the Economic Freedom Fighters. Their platform is take all the white people's land. They stole it. Take it all back and distribute it to the people.
Yeah.
But the ANC doesn't want to do that because that's kind of what Robert Mugabe did in Zimbabwe in 2000. And it destroyed the country's economy and it's like never recovered. So they're like, we don't want to do that because everybody in Zimbabwe had to move to South Africa because of that. So the ANC, ironically enough, to say that there's a white genocide in order to keep the Economic Freedom Fighters or any of the other leftist parties out of power, actually is in a coalition government with like the nearly all white Democratic Alliance, which represents the interest of white landowners.
How does that work?
Because they're like the ANC and the DA both recognize that real land confiscation would lead to economic disaster for the country and isolation. So the ANC is saying it's better to distribute the resources either slowly, and then also the ANC also represents the black elite that's emerged in post-colonial, like post-apartheid South Africa. So like the president Cyril Ramaphosa, he was a union leader. But then he also, after the end of apartheid, he becomes like a Coca-Cola executive. So he's like worth like $400 million, something like that, right?
So how is Africa handling rebalancing its economy? How does it kind of redistribute or bring people up that in post-apartheid South Africa? What are the policies that they are doing to do that?
South Africa looks a lot like the United States.
Oh, no. Oh, God. Oh,
rich people and poor people.
Fucked. They are so fucked. Like, oh, man, you could have said Mexico. I'd be like, there's a lot of room for growth. Wait, so tell me, why does it look a lot like the United States?
Rich people and poor people. It's economic inequality. I mean, it's just more visually stark there, right? It's like, if you're like in Johannesburg, for instance, you could eat at one of the world's finest restaurants for, with like all these great people, and you enjoy champagne and house music and everything. And then you go like 5 blocks that way and you're like, hey man, they took the electricity out how'd they get that in there? Or like outside it, like everybody goes to Cape Town for vacation because it's white people in the city center, but they don't go to any of like the shanty towns that like surround it, right? So that's kind of what, South Africa is a good recipe for actually where the United States is going. And what made inequality even worse was Jacob Zuma, who's basically Donald Trump. He's Africa's Donald Trump, down to the sexual assault case, down to the always scapegoating like white people for like, he's like, these are white lies. But he's like, stealing. He basically he did what was called state capture, where he allowed a powerful company ran by a group called the Guptas to essentially capture all of the state machinery. And South Africa went from a country that had like excess electricity to it had like, it's just now recovering from having like years of like blackouts. Because the state power company gets looted under Jacob Zuma's presidency.
Literally, a private company goes in and takes it over, and they can pillage the resources, route the power, build infrastructure where they want, that kind of a thing.
Oh, it's exactly what Elon. It's like Doge. The way Doge is being presented as reform is exactly the way state capture under the Guptas was presented to the South African public, and it's the same thing of replacing all the watchdogs and like the purge of all the anti-corruption officials and making them loyal to the presidency is what is exactly what Jacob Zuma did. It's exactly what's happening in the United States.
You mentioned Mandela he forgave all the white people for, what happened and did not like advocate for taking the land back. Do you think that should have happened after apartheid fell? Do you think there should have just been a one clear swoop of land that was repatriated back to the South African people?
It would have caused civil war, and the country would have went from being the richest country in Africa that did have growth of a black middle class and a black upper class to just like an impoverished country. Like I like Zimbabwe is kind of like a good, like it's right next door. And it's like, it's kind of like when people say, well, they should have just took everything. It's like, that's what Zimbabwe did. Zimbabwe can't even keep a currency. Like every day they're like, oh, we got to launch a new currency.
What is the solution then? Is it the same kind of solution we're talking about in America, like taxes and stuff? What is the solution to kind of help normal working class or normal South Africans?
It wasn't adopting neoliberal economic models. I don't think that was.
Well, yeah, no,
that wasn't helpful.
You don't need a PhD for that, I think. But yeah, exactly. We're going to talk about neoliberalism in a couple of weeks, by the way, which I'm really excited about and hate with a passion. But yeah, so what? So the classic American or neoliberal economic principles created this huge income inequality that's happening in South Africa. How do you reverse something like that? Sorry, I know I'm asking you to solve all of South Africa's problems right now, but I'm just very interested in what are the potential avenues of
Justin's on the case.
Part of the problem with South Africa is that it had a heroic revolutionary party that won and transitioned the country to democracy. Like, so Nelson Mandela and the ANC is like this incredibly strong brand because it's like, hey, you know how you weren't free?
Yeah.
That's all you have to say, right?
It's like, we did it.
Yeah.
We did it. We did that. Yeah.
The problem is that shields like Mandela's like inferior successors from a lot of scrutiny from the public. And in a country where it's like white people are such a bad brand, nobody wanted to vote for them. So that means like black politicians and white people aren't a very big part of the population at this point. They're less than 10%, I think. But so like, but their brand was so toxic that, people didn't want to listen to them. And they voted in people like Jacob Zuma and then reelected Jacob Zuma. And now I think South African people are realizing, like, you're seeing like some black South Africans are like, actually, we're going to vote for the white kind of center right party as a way to put a check on the ANC's corruption, because the ANC had no incentive to change its behavior. Once it knew, it could never lose. I mean, it's for the first time, it's like dipped under like 70% of the vote or something. Like they were crushing it in so many elections afterwards.
Frankly, it does seem like the resentment toward the Democratic Party is what led to a lot of those, leftist or Bernie supporting Dems to go switch their vote to Trump. Is like the Democratic Party didn't do their job to help the working class people. Globalization and trade and global trade and all these deals like eroded the middle class in America, and the Rust Belt was the Rust Belt because of it. And then all of a sudden you have this switch. Is that feel like it's like, do you feel similar in that sense, or where's the difference?
I don't know. Part of it is, if you want to say the Donald Trump of South African politics, is to be like the EFF, Julius Malema. He was kicked out of the ANC. He was their youth league leader. He's kind of like Dr. Umar Johnson in South Africa, but he's like, we must kill the white man and take the land back.
Jesus Christ.
He's like, they stole it, so we got to take it back. I don't do a good Malema, but he's sort of he's terrifying though to the black upper class and the white upper class, because they both see him as like a threat to their class interest. South Africa learned its lesson about like sort of supporting radical populism based on Zimbabwe's collapse, because all the immigrants that fled indirectly into South Africa. So it's kind of really hard to say, let's do what they did over there, especially because like xenophobia is a real problem in South Africa. So they're like, we're not going to repeat the thing that brought all these dirty immigrants to our country.
What would it mean if Trump cut all funding to South Africa? How much does it depend on American funding, American aid?
I don't know how much American aid was going in. I think, South Africa has got enough issues, but it's not going to be like, it's not like the country's economy is going to like collapse anymore. It's actually kind of coming out of the worst part of its crisis. Like the last like 3 years, it was in like real tough shape. I think a lot of this is political theater in a lot of ways. For one, most of those Afrikaners aren't coming. And if they are, Trump's going to be really disappointed, because it's going to be the super poor ones. And he's going to be like, oh, I thought we were going to get more white people. It's like a small trickle of white South Africans. It's also that in this weird climate of global inequality, with like all the places where even white South Africans after apartheid fled, they probably can't afford them now. Like if you move to like Sydney, Australia, dude, like Johannesburg is looking pretty good right now, price wise. So like the world is so unequal that South Africa's economic, it's like a prime target for gentrification. It's like, do you want some level of first world like infrastructure and like natural beauty? So I wouldn't be surprised that you might see like some white South Africans going back, actually, because they're like, hey, remember when we lived like on all this land and stuff like that? We can get private security and all of those things,
Yeah, Justin, can you talk to us about the intersection of Israel and Palestine with South Africa?
No, that's also the reasoning for the retaliation against South Africa. So number one, it's the white supremacist fantasy of a white genocide that's happening there. But then it's also retaliation that South Africa is the country that initiated the International Criminal Court case against Israel. And the fact that it's been a persistent critic of the Israeli state, like the ANC's had an alliance with the PLO and Palestinian Authority, and then also announcing solidarity, right? Because the ANC's position is that we know what apartheid and settler colonialism are, and so we are uniquely sort of like in a unique position to have moral authority to speak on this issue. So the United States retaliation is meant to undermine South Africa on that, right? It means one thing for somebody in the context to say, college student, what do you know about apartheid? You don't know the definition. But for an ANC politician that was in an apartheid era jail to be saying that about Israel is a much harder case. And the fact that South Africa is also sort of like, it's an inconvenient case for Israel because it also shows coexistence between two groups. The fact that South Africa created a democracy where both people live with equal citizenship is actually very problematic for Israel. Now, I don't know if like the Palestinians would necessarily agree to that, but showing that a state can be shared is like not like the position of like the Israeli, like pretty much the entire Israeli political spectrum, right? Is that you need a separate ethno-state at this point. And so South Africa is kind of like undermines that because it's a democracy and it's directly not an ethno-state. It recognizes like everyone's national language. Like Nelson Mandela called it the Rainbow Nation. It gives equal rights to all groups of people. And so like South Africa in that way is sort of like uniquely threatening in its narrative. So you have to kind of undermine it. It's also a country that has a significant Jewish minority. Now, some of them are actually going back to like Israel now from what I've seen, or going to Israel. But the fact that the ANC always made a distinction between opposing the Israeli state, but also not being anti-Semitic. So a lot of Jews were actually instrumental in the ANC and the anti-apartheid struggle. And Mandela was also very clear on that. He's like, this has nothing to do with anti-Semitism. Our opposition is to settler colonialism. And that kind of distinction is also sort of, and that nuance is also pretty threatening for the debate that kind of seeks to say that any opposition to the Israeli government has like some kind of motives that are rooted in anti-Semitism ultimately.
Yeah, that is the gray area that we have to kind of exist in, that we're trying to pull people into, frankly, that no one everyone's very resistant to. And I think that's really hard to hold on to that.
Yeah, you'll see the South African government does not make anti-Semitic statements, right? And they don't even do the like code word stuff. Now, I will say the economic freedom fighters, however.
Well, maybe we'll cover them on another show. Okay.
They have some statements about Jews where you're like, all right.
Well, speaking of statements about Jewish people, well, we have Elon Musk coming up after this. We're not going to talk about Steve Bannon, but sweet Jesus, that man is insane.
God.
What a beauty.
When we come back, we're going to talk about Doge and how full of dog shit they actually are. I'm Sina Ghazavi, Justin Williams, Noreen Malik. We'll be right back. This is the Foreign Report. Welcome back to the Foreign Report. I'm Sina Ghazavi. Noreen Malik is our producer. Justin Williams, Dr. Justin Williams, is our guest today. Thank you so much for that segment on South Africa. I learned a lot. I'm now going to read that section of The Economist more often because now I have a little bit of a foundation.
And I think this is an opportune time for everyone to go back and watch The Color of Friendship, original Disney Channel movie, DCOM. It'll teach you a lot about South Africa.
Okay.
I'm sure you two haven't seen it.
We have not.
I'm sure.
I definitely have not. Justin, have you seen it?
Oh, no. What's it about? Colors?
Is that the Morgan Freeman, Matt Damon movie about rugby?
That's Invictus.
Close. It's about a black family living in DC who's like super involved with the anti-apartheid movement in South Africa. And they get an exchange student to go to high school with the daughter from South Africa. They're so excited to have a South African exchange student. The girl shows up. She's white. She's part of the problem. Oh my God. Fantastic movie.
Hilarity
I don't know if it
ensues.
still holds up, I'll be honest.
Hilarity ensues on the Disney Channel.
I'm surprised to come here and see that this family is black.
Yeah, and she's racist to them. Yeah, it's crazy.
They've taken me all the way to America and put me up with a bunch of cheeky Kafirs. Yeah.
Okay, we're going to talk about Doge now. He has a bunch of these 19-year-olds stealing your data, by the way, America. I'm stealing, right? Elon Musk is stealing your data, okay? He is using LLMs to process employment information through staffers, all through federal agencies, to make these random cuts that are not going to save any reasonable amount of money in the federal government. It's ridiculous. Remember, there's so much fraud, waste, and abuse from Doge that we're going to cover it here today because it relates to geopolitics, specifically. Maybe you remember this video.
And this is, again, incredibly important to ensure that this administration is taking into consideration how hard the American people are working. And their tax dollars actually matter to this administration. You know, just during this pause, Doge and OMB have actually found that there was $37 million that was about to go out the door to the World Health Organization, which is an organization, as you all know, that President Trump, with the swipe of his pen in that executive order, is no longer wants the United States to be a part of. So that wouldn't be in line with the president's agenda. Doge and OMB also found that there was about to be 50 million taxpayer dollars that went out the door to fund condoms in Gaza. That is a preposterous waste of taxpayer money. So that's what this pause is focused on, being good stewards of tax dollars.
Guys, press secretary, she was right. It was going to go to Gaza. Gaza. Yeah. Do you know there's only one Gaza ever in the world, right? No, guys.
Because Yahya Sinwar.
Yeah.
Wear a big condom.
Smashes.
He'd be like, I need a Trojan to go over my Hamas penis, my thick Hamas penis. I need $50 million rubber.
So The WHO was going to send millions of dollars of condoms to Gaza, the province in Mozambique. Okay.
Yeah, that makes more sense.
Okay. Here else, there's also a Gaza in Iowa. I don't know if you knew that. There's a Gaza in New Hampshire. Okay. First to vote. Okay. There's Gaza, Mozambique. There's also Gaza, Portugal. And there's a Gaza, Lebanon. Okay. There's also a Palestine. Do you know there's a Palestine? There is. Everyone's like, there is no Palestine. There is a Palestine, Texas.
Yeah.
Palestine, Illinois. Palestine, these nuts. Sorry. It's Palestine, Arkansas. Palestine, Ohio. Palestine, Indiana. Palestine, West Virginia. Ontario. Palestine, Colombia. Palestine. Guys, there are places that have the same name. And maybe if you do maybe 5 minutes of extra work, maybe even 30 seconds, you'll find out exactly. I just think about the number of decisions.
Boring.
It is boring.
The number's not right, too. It's also not $50 million. It's like, there's no way.
Way down. So that you're absolutely right. It actually ended up being $7 million is actually spent on condoms, and it's to stop HIV and AIDS.
Yeah.
And it's part of a $50 million yearly contraceptive program funded by USAID for the entire continent of Africa.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's not working if you look at population growth numbers. So that's what I'm saying. Yeah. I like Trump because he's a white supremacist, but he's so stupid. It's like, yeah, you're a white supremacist, but you're going to yank the condom program for Africa. It's like, good luck. Nigerians are going to run this place. Like, Nigeria is going to be the size of China by the end of this century.
I believe I was reading the Ivory Coast is the only place in the world that is having more children than they're losing people, if that makes sense. Everywhere else in the world is in population decline, except for like a couple parts of Africa. And so that's a huge problem. I mean, we do need people. I know it's like climate change. We need to get rid of the people. But it's like, no, we need people.
No, Africa's population is growing so fast that the majority of the population in pretty much every country is under like 30. And it's only exponentially growing in most places. So yeah, stopping the condom program. That's why I laugh, because they're like white supremacists, but they're like incompetent. Like, they should be shipping everything over to Africa right now. Africans are getting down.
Not for nothing. This is why I don't want to call them Nazis, because Nazis had it dialed in. These are dumb white supremacists. Okay. Yeah. These are absolute idiots. As Elon Musk sends over 150 tweets per day, or averages 150 tweets per day, which, again, back to your earlier point, Justin, he should just be a person that's like, I'm busy. I got to go to this meeting, not tweet 150 times per day. Yeah. There was another false claim that Musk, that went viral, that it was a multi-billion-dollar ICE project, and that was reportedly saving $8 billion by canceling a contract with the U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement for equal employment opportunity services. However, it was later revealed that the actual contract was $8 million, not $8 billion. Billion. Million.
It's so funny.
Oh my God. They literally entered the wrong number. It was a data entry problem. And so Musk is trying to cut $2 trillion from a $6.7 trillion budget. If he and Doge closed OMB, Offices of Management and Budget, U.S. foreign aid, including aid to Ukraine and all disaster zones, Department of Education, Public Broadcasting, PBS, NPR, Department of Commerce, EPA, FAA, Department of Transportation, National Archives, Smithsonian, Department of Labor, NASA, and the CIA, Musk wouldn't even get to 25% of $2 trillion.
No, he doesn't know what he's doing. Who thinks, I like it that people think rich people, it's like, he managed to like ruin the value of Twitter.
Yeah.
Like, and you're like, that guy should now be control of the whole budget. And he's like making like basic math mistakes. Like I've been saying throughout the whole show, he's like clearly like a moron.
Yeah.
But it's funny. People just think just because you have money that, and that's fine. That's why I'm trying to get money now. So I could do whatever I want. This is also how I know Elon Musk is also a loser. The fact that he's not busy having sex all the time.
He's having a good amount though.
No, but those
he's got like
those
13
are
kids.
Yeah, but that's not the same. He's not busy having sex because he's such a loser. He's one pump and done, and that's why he has enough time to be doing all this. It's like I would be making love all night long if I was Elon Musk. Like you wouldn't even be able. My Twitter would go dark for days.
Will Chamberlain numbers. Yeah, I hear you.
Yeah, and there'd be less kids because I would use all those condoms from Gaza, you know, and so I wouldn't have like all these kids that I would have to give them computer chip names, and have what's her name?
Oh, Grimes.
Yes, Grimes.
Grimes, yeah. I wouldn't have sex with anyone whose their name is Grimes. That sounds gross.
All right. If Musk get this. If Musk shuts down all the federal agencies, including NSA, FBI, and our entire military, Space Force, Marines, Navy, Army Force, Air Force, all that stuff, except for only two, healthcare and Social Security, he still wouldn't get to $2 trillion. Yeah. He's still. So the only thing that they have, and they're talking about it now, they're talking about waste, fraud, and abuse that's happening in Medicaid and Medicare. It's like, what are we doing, folks?
Yeah.
And so they're going to go after old people's health care. They're going to go after the poor. They're going to go after your Social Security checks. This is where they're at right now. And there was a study that showed that 73 million Americans who receive Social Security, approximately 44,000 of them have received improper checks for a few months before being discovered and stopped. Those $44,000 checks won't make a dent in Musk's $2 trillion. They're mostly deceased people who somehow did it. And don't get me wrong, as we've said on the show multiple times, plenty of waste, fraud, and abuse happening in all parts of the government. We've talked about USAID. We've talked about the problems at USAID that were happening and all the benefits and the good things that USAID was doing as well. But let's be honest here. This is where I go back to, I think I might have talked about this on the last show, but it's like, what is the point of efficiency? What is the cost of efficiency? If you make something 5% more efficient, but you end up taking away funding for Ebola prevention, which, by the way, play that video. Where's that video? That's the video I wanted you to play.
Just go to Doge.gov. We line item by line item, we specify each item. So, I should say, we will make mistakes. We won't be perfect, but when we make a mistake, we'll fix it very quickly. So, for example, with USAID, one of the things we accidentally canceled very briefly was Ebola prevention. I think we all want Ebola prevention. So we restored the Ebola prevention immediately.
Oops.
And there was no interruption.
Okay, cut this. Stop. People, folks, I don't want an efficient government if it means we're going to accidentally cut Ebola prevention, okay? Or you tell me, folks, do you want Ebola? Do you want a little Ebola? If you just, that government purring like a kitten, we don't have any waste, fraud, or abuse. We've got a little bit of Ebola. We got a little bit. Like we just West Texas, I saw today. There's a little bit of measles. Some baby died, just a little bit. But hey, purring like a kitten. No more waste, fraud, and abuse. Just waste, fraud, and abuse is gone. We got a little bit of measles.
I mean, this is what happens when you pull out a chainsaw.
Yeah, no,
yeah.
You got to take your Tesla and you got to put the White House in the address and then put it on autopilot and then dive out at the last minute.
Yep.
Everybody send your Teslas towards the Capitol building.
I thought it's like, we should all do it. And everyone should know. Yeah, I got it before he started talking and we all knew he was a maniac. And I've tried to sell this damn thing, and it's the amount I could buy nothing with this car. Oh God, such a nightmare.
Everybody in California is unhappy.
Everyone in California is pissed.
Yeah.
We also subsidized his whole company, like the corporate socialism that he got to benefit from, that he is now fighting all this stuff against. It's insane to me. He's a trash person. Here's the correct way if you want to cut government spending. You can go back to the 90s, okay? To the gentle 90s, where Clinton and Gore did it. The U.S. had a $300 billion deficit, which is hilarious compared to, I believe it's like over $20 trillion now. I mean, like, you know, I get it. Okay. But they turned it around. They had a surplus after 4 years. And there was a lot that happened. The tech boom, you had the you had broadened your tax base. So that's how you're able to do things. But what they were able to do is they went to each agency and found out places where they could reduce staff. And then they also raised taxes on people. This is the problem. There are debates happening right now in this country where people don't want to raise taxes on people that make over $10 million a year. This is just insane.
What a bunch of cucks.
This is
the American public is made up of cucks. You're all a bunch of broke people defending the interests of people that would not even bother to step over you as your corpse laid in the street. The American public is the most spineless group of cowards in the world. And it's just outrageous. You defending these rich people. Oh, ugh. You defend rich people, you won't even defend your own children, but you'll let your children get shot up at school. But don't talk about Elon. We need Elon. Oh, Daddy Trump. Daddy Trump, please take my Bible. Sign my Bible. Take everything from me, Daddy Trump. Ooh, please don't tax Goldman Sachs. I'll cry if Goldman Sachs has one less helicopter. I have one foot due to diabetes, but I love Goldman Sachs. Oh, Martin Shkreli is my hero. You stupid people. Wake up.
Yeah. I think that sums it all up right there.
Yeah.
And I think this is really the thing where people keep talking about efficiency. We have a government so that it's not a private business, so that it's not efficient, frankly. I don't want it to be efficient because you know what I want it to do? I want it to stop veterans from killing themselves.
Yeah.
Right? I want vets to get the health care they need. I want Americans to get the health care they need. And that inherently is going to be an inefficient process because you're making sure people don't die. And private insurance companies are able to make a lot of money because they allow people to die because it meets their bottom line. And in fact, if they don't let people die, then they're going to get sued by their shareholders. So this is the country we live in. And this is also how we treat the rest of the world, right? The reason I love doing the Foreign Report is because how we treat the rest of the world is a reflection of how we treat the most vulnerable here. And so when we take away Ebola prevention, or we take away critical programs that we do around the world that, yeah, sure, are some degree of, you could call civil engineering or, you know, whatever you want to call propaganda. I don't care. But it is a contrast to the brutal capitalism that literally results in Americans dying from health bankruptcy. So, yeah, there's a lot more we could talk about with this, but just.
And next week we're going to have Luigi on the show.
Luigi from prison. Hey, Luigi. Come stai? I'm fine.
We got to get him on, honestly.
Give him sneak him in a phone.
He's a dreamboat. I like his abdominals.
I can't believe he was an Iranian, man. That was a real miss for our people.
No, you should be happy he wasn't Iranian because that would
no,
have been
man.
the
He
story.
had the whole thing. He was a heartthrob. Everyone loves him. Or he had the look. If the initial shots, I was like the eyebrows, the nose, light eye. I mean, he could have been.
You know, Timothy Chalamet is preparing to be him.
To be him or to be Iranian?
It's gonna be Timothy Chalamet is gonna be Luigi in the movie.
Anyways, I'm C.D. Cassidy, Justin Williams. Thank you so much for joining us. Noreen Malik, as always, it's been a pleasure. We'll see you guys next week on the Foreign Report.